This is Recovery Lifestyles with Carmel. Here at Recovery Lifestyles, we are committed to raising awareness and ending stigmas surrounding addiction and mental health. On today's episode, I'll be chatting with Carrie Hoffman, a digital nomad, freelancer, and yoga teacher who loves sharing the joy of sobriety and breaking down the stigma against addiction. As co-owner with her husband of Bigger Life Adventures, Carrie and her husband travel the world leading yoga and adventure retreats for people inside recovery. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for being here today. So it looks like you're in an interesting location. Can you share with us a little bit more about that? Where are you right now?
Yeah. Hi, Carmel. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me. I am actually in my van right now, living the hashtag van life dream. So I'm in California in my van.
Nice. I love it. You have like a total hippie vibe going on.
Oh, yes, of course. You know me. I love all my colorful fabrics and all that sorts of stuff. So the van is actually not fully finished yet. My husband has been working hard on making it into a home with, like walls and a fridge and a stove and a bed and everything. So I'm sitting on my bed right now. But like the walls aren't fully finished. It hasn't quite gotten to be time for decorating yet, which is going to be more my job, which I'm excited about, but we'll get there.
Awesome. Love it. So today we're going to talk about your passion, your business with Bigger Life Adventures. And can you share with us maybe some of your adventures that you've had going on for sober people? I just think it's so cool what you do.
Sure. So I think it's cool too, obviously. That's why I do it. But we're just so excited to continue our mission with Bigger Life Adventures, which is to run yoga and adventure retreats for people in recovery. And our trips vary from short weekend retreats in the United States to like longer week to 10-day trips in different countries. And it's just based on the passion that my husband and I have always had for traveling and exploring the world and connecting with different cultures, and now also connecting with other people in recovery and using the tools of yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, nature, and adventure to really help people who are recovering from a variety of things to like tap into their highest selves and connect with people in similar situations and just have amazing transformative travel experiences.
Yeah, so I feel like you guys are just total trailblazers on this because a lot of us, we get sober, we're living inside recovery, and we don't always see the big picture right away of what is possible. So why don't you share with us, what was your biggest fear about traveling after you got sober? Well, I was just going to say, and we just have to apologize, with you being a digital nomad, we don't exactly have the best connection. So people just like, hold on with us. We're going to do our best. And if you can hear us, but if we're pausing, just, hold tight. But again, sorry. What I was asking was, what was your biggest fear when you started traveling sober?
I think my biggest fear was just in general that it would be different and that I wouldn't enjoy it as much. Because before I got sober, traveling always had a lot to do with drinking for me. And I felt that, trying the local wine or beer or alcohol or whatever was there was like definitely a big part of the travel experience. And it was a big priority for me to like go wine tasting in Europe or South America, or to just like try whatever local like crappy cheap beer was there in Africa or any different place. I kind of let travel be an excuse for me to drink the way I wanted to drink, which was usually excessively and at all times of the day. And when you're traveling, you kind of like lower your inhibitions and just let yourself do that more often. And I definitely saw trying all the local alcohols and using drinking with local people and other travelers as a way to connect as a big part of the travel experience for me. So when I got sober, I was just worried that I wouldn't be able to like fully experience a culture, as silly as that seems to me now. And I was also worried that I wouldn't have a way to like connect with other travelers and local people if I was not drinking and everyone else was.
Right, right. So this is a little off top. Well, it's not off topic, but I'm intrigued by this. So what was your first experience sober at Burning Man? Because when we think of Burning Man, we do not think of sobriety. At least I don't, right? I think drugs. And I mean, isn't Burning Man about getting as high as you can?
So it used to be for me. That was definitely what I thought about when I first considered going to Burning Man. And my first couple times there were definitely all about drinking and drugs and trying new things in that world. And I couldn't possibly understand why anyone would go to Burning Man sober.
Right.
Until I got sober. And then I decided that I did still want to go to Burning Man. And I actually knew from past times, you know, just like passing it by it on my bike while on the playa or something, that there were sober camps in Burning Man. So I did some research and I talked to my sponsor about it. And I felt like I could go to Burning Man sober and still have fun. And my sponsor was like, okay, she had actually done it also. She had gone to Burning Man sober. So that helped me, just like having her experience to talk about and how she had done it. And so I knew like where the sober camp was and where the meetings were before I went. And I had a great time. I actually like had the best experience I've ever had the first time I went to Burning Man sober. And then I went back the next year. And that was my second time doing it sober, my husband's first time doing it sober. And he also says that it was his best experience yet, the first time he went sober. And so now this year will be my third sober burn, and I'm so excited. And so now that we're both sober, we actually camp with the sober camp. That's just like full of the most amazing people. And there are meetings every day and there are yoga classes. And it's just like everyone acts all like wild and crazy and funky just without having to be fucked up to do it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it still takes a little bit for me to wrap my mind around that there's meetings at Burning Man, right? Because like in my days, which was quite a long time ago, I mean, I don't even think there probably was a meeting at Burning Man 16 years ago, but maybe there was and I wasn't aware. So yeah. So how has being sober changed the way you travel?
So that's a good question. I feel like it has changed it a lot, but in more subtle ways. Like definitely the things I'm interested in doing when I travel are different now. I enjoy more like doing things out in nature, going on hikes and going to the beach and just being outside and doing things that are more like daytime activities. So I like to try to stick with my normal routine of waking up early and going to bed kind of early rather than like being out at the bars, you know, all night like I used to be. You know, that's not as fun to me anymore. So when I go to a new place, maybe like once or twice, I'll like try to stay up late to see some live music or go to art galleries or go out to eat, you know, and still like experience the nightlife culture without drinking. But more what I prioritize are the things that I enjoy doing, like the hikes and the nature and just like walking around, people watching and cafe culture.
Right.
I love going to like coffee shops and now rather than going to bars.
So it actually sounds like you're having more of an experience overall. It's more enjoyable,
Yeah.
right? You're not spending. Go ahead.
I definitely feel like I actually enjoy travel more and I actually connect more with the local culture because I'm fully awake and all my senses are working and I'm able to, you know, just connect with people on a deeper level without that like haze of alcohol.
Yeah. So how do you approach the pressure to drink or use with people in new situations. I just want to touch on a little story about myself is, when I've traveled, it's very, say, with the Italians, that's just normal. They make their wine, they give you a drink, and they really just, they almost sometimes are offended because you won't have a drink. At least that's been my experience. So how do you approach that?
That's such a good question. I definitely drank a lot of wine when I went to Italy 5 years ago or so. And I actually haven't been to Europe since I got sober. So I think I will be going to Europe next year, and it'll be interesting to figure out how to approach that because, yeah, like France, Spain, and Italy are definitely countries where people take their wine really seriously and it's a big part of the culture. So I've actually chosen to go to more countries in Asia, and I also went to Cuba since I got sober. And those places are like places where it's not such an integral part of the culture, which definitely helps. Like in Malaysia, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, a lot of people are Hindu and Buddhist, and in those religions, or Muslim. So in those religions, drinking is actually very frowned upon.
Right.
So I think that's just a tip for other people who might be trying to choose a destination to travel to sober, is to pick a place where alcohol is not 100% of the culture. You can choose places where a higher percentage of people are also sober, and that helps. But when you are approached with, being offered drinks or something, I think just honesty is the best policy. I usually just say, I don't drink. Thank you, though. I'll have a sparkling water, or I'll have a soda, or I'll have, something else, a cup of tea. And if people press the issue, I usually try to be honest. And usually that just leads to good conversations, and sometimes people will really open up to me once they find out that I don't drink because I used to drink too much. I've actually had people open up to me about their own problems and their own struggles, and I've met people who have become best friends of mine just based on having that conversation and them being really curious about why I don't drink.
Yeah. So let's touch back on meetings. When you travel abroad, do you attend meetings? I mean, we know at Burning Man you're attending meetings, but what about in other countries?
So I have attended some meetings in different countries. My first sober international trip was to Mexico and Cuba, and I went to meetings there, which were good and interesting. And then I went to some meetings in Thailand also. So I spent about 5 months living in Thailand last year. And I did go to some meetings when I first got there. And to be quite honest, I just didn't really enjoy the meetings there as much as I enjoyed my meetings back home. And I eventually stopped going. Okay. And then when I went to Sri Lanka, and also ended up spending about 7 months in Sri Lanka, there were also meetings. I think I looked it up once. I could have found a meeting, that happened in a bigger town, which was about an hour from me once a week or something. But I just wasn't interested in checking it out, and I didn't go to any.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking of this story I've heard inside meetings locally, is how I heard this in a meeting the other day, how a friend was in the airport and really struggling. And so they had somebody announce on the intercom that anyone that's a friend of Bill W, meet here. And they had this little meeting in the airport. So just out of curiosity, because you're in airports a lot, have you ever had a meeting in an airport?
No, but that's awesome. I love that story. And I love how they used the little code to find some people.
Bill W.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it is cool. So I would like to hear more about, what do you have going on? I mean, I think you have some retreats coming up. I know in this coming year you have a big trip to Tanzania. Did you want to share with us more about that? Because I'm sure there's a few people listening that might be interested in checking what you and your husband have created and what you guys are doing. And I mean, travel is so awesome. So go ahead.
Yes. So we really just want to host these trips that help people travel in a healthy, sober environment with like-minded people who are also in recovery. You don't have to be in recovery from addiction to come. You can be in recovery from a variety of different things, or you can be sober curious or just want to travel with a group of sober, like-minded people. That's totally fine with us. So Tanzania is happening in October of this year. It's going to be a 10-day trip, and we're going to spend half the time on Zanzibar Island, which is like a gorgeous tropical island. We'll get to go out on a boat trip with snorkeling and stay in a house right on the beach and do yoga with the sunrise every day. And it's just going to be magical and beautiful with amazing food and just a wonderful, beautiful culture. And then we'll spend the second half of the trip on safari in northern Tanzania. So if you've ever seen The Lion King, you know, what you're seeing is based on Tanzania. They have, you know, the most beautiful, just crazy, diverse wildlife, all of the big five, all the animals. And we also make sure that we choose ethical, you know, safari companies and tour guides that are like respecting the local environment and doing something to also give back to the local community. So that's a big priority for us.
Awesome. So, and is there anything more local if there's anyone in California?
Yeah, we definitely have things that are coming up sooner and more local for people who are in the Southwest or California. Our first retreat of 2019 is actually coming up in about a month, and that's in Joshua Tree, California. So in the desert outside the national park. And that's at the end of April, April 26th to 28th. And we only have 3 spots left for that.
Awesome.
So it's almost completely sold out. So we're super excited for that one. And then in June for the summer solstice, so June 21st to 23rd, we're hosting another weekend retreat in Big Bear Lake, California, which is kind of this little like small mountain town that's just a few hours away from either San Diego or LA, but it's up in the mountains by this beautiful lake. And it's actually famous as a skiing and snowboarding mountain in the winter time, but nobody knows that it's also, you know, beautiful and wonderful to visit the lake and go hiking and go canoeing and all sorts of stuff in the summertime. So that's what we're going to do there.
Nice. Yeah, I've been to Joshua Tree and I've been to Big Bear Lake. Definitely, I had been up to, when I was up in Big Bear Lake, it was such a quaint little beautiful space. And I only got to spend a day there. So I can just imagine how incredible that event will be. So is there anything that you'd want to leave everybody today? Is there anything on your heart that you'd want to share before we close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of backtrack for a moment to when I said that I ended up not going to meetings in Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that there's one right way to travel sober. And that was my choice for me. I decided to stop going to meetings, but I definitely found other resources to rely on for my recovery. Mm-hmm. So I listened to a ton of podcasts. You know, there's so many amazing recovery related podcasts out there like this one. Mm-hmm. And I really would listen to like almost every day a podcast related to recovery or sobriety. And that helped me a lot. I was very tapped into some sober communities on Facebook and Instagram. And I just found that the support of the sober community online was really useful to me. And then also just being really open and honest with the people that I met who I became friends with as I traveled also helped keep me accountable. So even though I wasn't going to meetings, I still felt very like connected to the sober community online. And I felt like I was being very true to myself by just sharing openly and honestly with people that I met. And it helped me stay safe and sober and happy and have a beautiful travel experience.
Awesome. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I just know that everybody that is listening in will be touched by what you're sharing. You have some amazing trips coming up. And if anybody was interested in connecting with you or finding out more about that, how can they find you?
Sure. So my website for our retreat and workshop company is biggerlifeadventures.com. And then we're also on Instagram as Bigger Life Adventures and Facebook. And you can find us on pretty much any social media. Just look for Bigger Life Adventures, and we'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. So I will also have your links below the video. And thanks again, Carrie, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. It's been so nice to catch up and talk.
Yeah.